Area 51. For decades, the US government refused to admit it even existed. But when they finally did, it was too late. The internet had already planned an invasion. The base sits in the Nevada desert, about 100 miles northwest of Las Vegas. In theory, it was just a military aircraft testing base. The U-2 spy plane was developed there in the 50s, flying higher than any plane at the time. But here's where the story gets interesting. Those high-altitude test flights in the 50s looked quite suspicious to people on the ground. Add in the government refusing to explain anything, and conspiracy theories started spreading. Then, in 1989, a man named Bob Lazar went on Las Vegas television claiming he worked at Area 51, where he reverse-engineered alien spacecraft. He swore he saw autopsy photos of extraterrestrials and that the government was studying recovered UFOs. Lazar was later discredited, but the damage was done. Area 51 became permanently linked with aliens. Fast forward to 2019. Someone created a joke Facebook event called Storm Area 51, They Can't Stop All of Us. The plan was simple. Show up on September 20th, overwhelm security through sheer numbers, and Naruto run past the bullets to free the aliens. Normies up front, furries flanking right, Kyles on Monster Energy, holding the center. Not exactly rocket science, and it shows. Still, over 2 million people clicked attending, which is a lot until you realize only 150 people showed up, with 12 wearing matching tinfoil hats. Imagine explaining that to the aliens. Survival chance, 95%. 5% if you actually try to storm it. Krampus. Picture this. It's December. You're a kid in the Alps, and you've been told that if you're good, St. Nicholas brings you gifts. But if you're bad, something else shows up instead. That something is Krampus, a 7-foot-tall, horned demon covered in matted black fur, dragging chains and trauma behind him. He's an absolute goat, both literally and figuratively. He's got cloven hooves, a freakishly long tongue, and walks around carrying two things: a bundle of birch branches for beating kids, and a sack. Honestly, I thought Germans only flaunted their sausages, but with this holiday, they've clearly given extra attention to the sack. And this sack is enormous. I mean, something's got to carry the children, right? Krampus shows up on the night of December 5th, known as Krampusnacht, to deal with naughty kids the old-fashioned way: public beatings and recreational abduction. And if you're really unlucky, he'll stuff you in his massive sack and drag you into the forest. Or straight to hell. His origins go way back, long before Christianity arrived in Europe. When the church moved in, they couldn't quite erase him, so they did the next best thing. They gave him a job. Now he's cosplaying as a furry, while St. Nicholas gets to play the Holy One. Reward and punishment bundled into one happy holiday package. So, if you ever find yourself in the Alps during early December and hear chains dragging outside your door, get ready for the worst case scenario. Survival chance, 50%, lower. If you're dyslexic and write a letter directed to Satan instead of Santa. Djinn. We all know the genie in the bottle, right? Rub something, make a wish, get what you want. Kind of like real life, except it's nothing like that, and you'll wish this was the full story. You see, long before Islam, Jinn were worshipped across pre-Islamic Arabia. Back then, they weren't random blue dudes living inside someone's lamp. They were nature spirits who controlled weather, inspired poets, and lived in places humans couldn't see. When Islam arrived, the Quran didn't erase Jinn. It acknowledged they exist. According to Islamic tradition, Jinn were created from smokeless fire on Thursday, one day before humans were made from clay on Friday. They live in a parallel dimension with free will, families, and the ability to choose between good and evil. And the most famous Jinn of them all was Iblis. When God commanded all beings to bow to Adam, Iblis refused out of pride. He got dumped from paradise and became what we now call Satan. God damn dyslexia. Anyway, Jinn are shapeshifters. They can appear as humans, snakes, or stay completely invisible. And while they do grant wishes, they also possess people, cause disease, and punish anyone who disturbs their territory, intentionally or not, which should give you a clue that your wish could slightly backfire if you're not careful. Jinns take things literally. So if you're riding into the sunset with the chicks you wished for, I'm just going to assume you wanted to be part of my chicken army. Just saying. And I know what you're thinking. Damn, that's genius. Actually, it's a genie. And here's my wish. Subscribe, please. Survival chance, 40%. Unless you think rubbing stuff solves problems. Jiangshi. The Jiangshi is a creature so cursed, it can only move by hopping. It's ancient, terrifying, and genuinely bad at stairs. According to folklore, a Jiangshi is created when someone's po, the dark part of the soul, refuses to leave the body after death. The result is a stiff, reanimated corpse, dressed in traditional Qing dynasty robes, pogo hopping after anything warm-blooded. The Jiangshi feeds on qi, basically your life source. Get too close and they'll suck the living energy straight out of you, leaving you either dead as hell or slowly transforming into one of them. Honestly, if I came back from the dead and my first obstacle is a single step, I'd probably want to drain some souls too. The legend came from the Qing dynasty, where migrant workers who died far from home needed to be transported back for proper burial. Families couldn't afford regular transportation, so they hired corpse drivers who would bind bodies upright to bamboo poles and march them through the countryside at night. From a distance, the swaying corpses looked like they were hopping. Add in some bells ringing to warn people away, and you've got yourself a new urban legend. The good news: they're legally blind and track victims by sensing your stank breath. Hold your breath when one passes and you might survive. They're also afraid of mirrors. I wonder why. And they'll stop to count scattered rice grains. So apparently the phrase "put it in rice" doesn't only work for phones. Oh, and to immobilize them completely? Just slap a Taoist talisman on the forehead. Not sure why it works. Maybe it's a killer fashion statement. Survival chance? 35% lower if you're asthmatic. Higher if you just walk up some stairs. Slender Man. Remember when the internet invented a monster and then two kids tried to murder their friend for it? Yeah, that actually happened. His origin story is simple. A guy named Eric Knudsen thought it would be funny to create a monster and then accidentally did too good of a job. Within weeks, people were writing backstories, making documentaries, and building an entire mythology around it. And if your first thought is, damn, that's Splendor, man, it's really not. It's Slender Man, also known as that faceless twig in a funeral suit, standing anywhere from 7 to 15 feet tall. Sometimes he's got tentacles sprouting from his back, sometimes flared jeans. Either way, he's not here to dance. His whole thing is psychological torment. He appears in the background of photos and videos, stalking kids mostly until victims start losing time, forgetting faces, coughing up blood. The more you learn about him, the worse it gets. He doesn't chase you down an alley. He just exists near you until your brain starts spiraling. Then came the game. You're dropped in a forest at night, and your only job is to collect some weird-ass pages, while Slendy tries to ruin your life. Honestly, if I see a paper like this nailed to trees in the dark, I'm just going home. But things got extra dark in 2014 when two 12-year-old girls in Wisconsin stabbed their friend 19 times, trying to prove Slender Man was real. The friends survived, the girls got locked up, and suddenly the internet's favorite boogeyman became courtroom evidence. Maybe they thought no face, no case applied to them too. Turns out the jury disagreed. Survival chance? 20%. 0% if you mistake him for Pitbull. Bigfoot. Bigfoot, or small toe or whatever they call him, is a hairy ape man who lives in the woods and has somehow avoided every single HD camera on the planet. Descriptions vary, but he's usually clocked in at around 7 to 9 feet tall, weighs over 500 pounds, and leaves footprints the size of a midget. He's basically the unofficial mascot of blurry forest footage, which makes sense since every photo of him looks like it was taken on a Nokia from 2003, duct taped to a squirrel. Here is my conspiracy, though. Maybe we've had it all wrong, and the photos aren't blurry. Maybe Bigfoot's just a naturally low-resolution guy. Who knows? Anyway, the legend comes from Native American tribes in the Pacific Northwest, who spoke of Sasquatch, a large, reclusive forest guardian covered in hair. Might have just been someone's really outdoorsy uncle, but who am I to judge? Fast forward a few centuries, and people are still claiming to see this lad stomping around, leaving massive tracks in the mud. Which is great, except nobody can get a clear photo. We've got satellites that can read license plates from space, but Bigfoot? Nah, best we can do is 12 pixels and some motion blur. Survival chance? 95%. Lower if you're hunting him with a potato phone. The Bloop. In 1997, something in the ocean made a noise so loud it could be heard 5,000 kilometers away. For reference, that's like someone in New York screaming and everyone in Los Angeles turning around to say, "You good?" Now, let that sink in. The sound itself was nicknamed the Bloop because it literally blooped on the audio recordings, a low, blooping noise picked up by underwater microphones called hydrophones. NOAA researchers listened back and admitted it sounded biological, like something massive groaning in the depths. Which, honestly, not great news, because for a creature to make a noise that loud, it would need to be over 250 feet long. That's some big-ass fish, like completely off the scale, by the way. That's also significantly bigger than a blue whale, which currently holds the title for underwater screaming champion. Naturally, the internet dove straight into the deep end. Theories ranged from megalodon to ancient sea monsters to Cthulhu, a fish who supposedly sleeps at the bottom of the ocean waiting to destroy humanity. Personally, I think that's just surface-level thinking. My guess, it's SCP-169 just hanging around down there. If you don't know who that is, check out my most uncontainable SCPs video. For a while, people were genuinely convinced something biblical was lurking below. God help us all. But then, scientists had to go and ruin everything. In 2005, NOAA confirmed the sound was just icequakes. So yeah, the most mysterious sound in underwater history turned out to be massive icebergs cracking near Antarctica. Talk about leaving everyone high and dry. Survival chance? 100%. Looks like it was just a whole lot of crap. El Gran Maja. If you thought the bloop was bad, wait until you see its biggest op, El Gran Maja, which is Spanish for "we're absolutely cooked," described as a gigantic fishworm hybrid, or possibly an eel that got into steroids and never stopped growing. El Gran Majá supposedly lurks in the deep waters off Puerto Rico. According to legend, it's got 6 glowing eyes, teeth the size of canoes, and a body longer than 12 ships stacked end to end. The first reported sighting was by a Spanish sailor in 1563, who, to paraphrase, said, "Its eyes were glowing like it was waiting for us to touch the water." Later sightings are said to have occurred across the Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific Oceans, with some fringe claims even linking it to the sinking of the Titanic, which was widely dismissed, by the way. Apparently, not every ocean disaster needs a sea monster. Sometimes they blame icebergs instead. But here's where it gets fun. Apparently, El Gran Majá and the Bloop had massive beef. The lore suggests that when El Gran Majá began surfacing more frequently and expanding its range, it intruded into gang theory long controlled by the Bloop. This supposedly triggered massive underwater disturbances, like unexplained seismic activity, sudden whale die-offs, and strange acoustic signals, interpreted as clashes between the two entities deep below the surface. Some interpretations claim the Bloop was eventually driven off or turned into sashimi, explaining why similar sounds stopped being detected. So who knows, maybe it wasn't ice after all. Survival chance, 20%. Unless he decides to fart and trigger a Category 5 earthquake. And that's your crash course in why I no longer trust forests, oceans, or December. Like, share, or subscribe if you also think humanity peaked when we started giving demons job titles.